All right, let's talk about Bill 55. Sneaky, sneaky little monkeys. Now, it took me a little while. It's 332 pages, and I went through it all. It looks like a whole bunch of nothing, but it's something. And that something is not good. This is what we're talking about. The Health Statutes Amendment Act. It's highly contentious, and for very good reason. To the point where this fascist UCP government wants to limit debate. That always tells me that it's gotta be on the up and up if they don't want people asking questions. Now we know that in the UCP's race to completely dismantle our healthcare system, basically throw it into a wood chipper and see what happens, well, they've got to go through every act because there's some wording they need to change. This is just an example, the Conflicts of Interest Act. The UCP loves conflicts of interest. Basically, in all the acts, they're striking out a regional health authority and adding things like a provincial health corporation or a subsidiary health corporation. Corporations? Now, a corporation could mean something like Alberta Health Services, or it could mean a private entity. We don't know. Because one of the biggest concerns from, a lot of the unions who have members that work in healthcare, and they have some big concerns with this bill, because, the UCP is shady. But we shouldn't worry because LaGrange is telling us this is not a bill about hospital privatization. Oh, Adriana, how are those measles outbreaks doing in rural Alberta? Forgive me if I don't trust Adriana's statement. Thanks to Google AI, which I'm not a fan of, but it sure does come in handy. This is what a health professional corporation is. So like, a dentist office. Or maybe a bunch of the dentists own the corporation and they practice under that corporation. Or a surgical care facility where doctors do surgeries, but it's a corporation. Perhaps they have shareholders. Profit. There's also the subsidiary health corporation, often a larger provincial health agency, like Alberta Health Services or Covenant, which was a provincial branch. It went Alberta Health, then Alberta Health Services, then all of their subsidiaries. But now it's not Alberta Health. I mean, it is, but it isn't, because they've put everything into these streams, which in my mind are just sinkholes, in order to disperse responsibility, because you shouldn't have just one person, one entity, making all the decisions. Unless you're Adriana LaGrange, because she's going to oversee everything. Everything. Because not only is she going to be the Minister of Health, she's going to be the oversight minister. What? But it's okay. Don't you worry. Because we're also bringing in sector ministers. Dan Sugarbeer Williams, responsible for addiction and mental health, and Jason, my dad started the Mustard Seed and I used to work there, Nixon, the Minister for Seniors and Community and Social Services. Yep, Jason Nixon's going to be responsible for your loved one going into long-term care. It's terrifying. But ultimately, Adriana gets to decide everything. The oversight minister, Adriana, may designate a hospital as an approved hospital. Adriana gets to tell us what an approved hospital is. Adriana. Adriana. Who once said, when questioned about the COVID vaccine, that it was a private conversation between her and her doctor. Nobody's business. Unless you're Adriana LaGrange, because then you get everybody's personal fucking information. As an authorized person who's authorized by the oversight minister, Adriana, or a sector minister, Dan and Jason, to disclose individually identifying health information or personal information, as outlined here. Now, because the UCP is shady, I don't know that I want them having direct access to my personal medical information. I mean, I know they did in a roundabout way, but they kinda didn't until this act. This is also a little clause that has me concerned, because as the oversight minister, there's oversight of the professional staff and matters relating to the professional staff. Remember when it was alleged that the UCP tried to get their hands involved in disciplining somebody that worked under Alberta Health Services, that happens to have a podcast, that talks a lot about the UCP shenanigans? They're just changing the legislation so that they can get their mitts involved. And even though there's a union that oversees that person, and many others, it's still shady as fuck. I love governments like the UCP, who when they're talking about other governments, are like, whoa, whoa, whoa. There needs to be transparency. We don't want over-governing. We don't want government making decisions that are none of their business. Unless you're the UCP. Then you get to put forward and basically demand that you have absolute oversight and control. Nothing you have done since you have taken office has moved to improve healthcare. It's gotten worse. And now you want to control everything so that nobody else can take a look at it. Well, I don't know, like actual doctors and medical professionals to offer input unless you ask explicitly. And you're not gonna, because for all the people that you've chosen to put in roles, like CEOs, CMOs, you've just gotten rid of them because they didn't toe your line. So now you're just gonna put yourself in a position of having absolute oversight to do whatever the fuck you want to do with our healthcare system. And that is why people are concerned. And I've said it before, I don't care what side of the table you sit on, whether you voted for Danny or you didn't. Every Albertan should be worried about this bill. It opens up the door for shady shenanigans. I'm just going to nip this in the bud because I know what Adriana's going to say. The UCP is committed to publicly funded healthcare, and people will never have to pay out of pocket. What you should be worried about is public funds going to private corporations where they make profit. That's not what healthcare is about. And studies have shown that privatized healthcare actually doesn't increase volume, even when they're getting public funds, because their bottom line is their bottom line. Anyhow, go read the bill, but every Albertan should be asking questions, especially the freedom yahoos, because Adriana's going to take your information and do with it whatever she wants. Sneaky little monkeys.